Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Byrne. I am the Executive Director of Freak Film Festival. And I'm here to welcome you tonight to our live discussion about the documentary Runner. For those of you that aren't aware of what it is or weren't able to check it out through our website over the last week to 10 days, Runner is a film about Guor Maker. He was a Sudanese refugee who went through tremendous trials and tribulations in his home country before eventually relocating to the United States and becoming an Olympic marathoner. We're really excited. We're going to have the director, Bill Gallagher, Guor, and a conversation that will be moderated by Free Press sports columnist Shawn Windsor. Just a couple of things I need to tell you before we get going tonight. One, if you're not familiar with Freak Film Festival, it is the documentary film festival produced by the newsroom of the Detroit Free Press. This year was our 7th year. We did do a virtual festival. Our festival was originally scheduled for April, shortly after the pandemic news came down. We did do a downsized virtual festival in April, and we are planning and hoping that we'll be doing some version of a physical festival in December. We focus on documentaries and do our very best to tie everything that the festival is about to the newsroom-driven mission and community-driven mission of the Free Press newsroom. This documentary in particular, there were some good reasons that we partnered on it. One, aside from the film festival that the Free Press produces, the Free Press also, as many people in Detroit know, runs a marathon. So it was really fitting when the distributors/producers reached out to us, and you had an organization that not only was involved in presenting film, but also helps run a very large marathon. Of course, we're waiting word on what's going to happen with the marathon at the Free Press. You know, it's fall. Many people who work on the film festival team also work on the marathon team for us. So in the end, and also the two of the distributors on this film, distributing producers, have worked with a couple of films that have played to great acclaim at the festival in past years, including The Russian Five, about the Red Wings' great Russian players that helped bring 2 Stanley Cups to Detroit, and Boy Howdy, the story of Cream Magazine, which was our opening night last year. So shout out to Jenny Fedorovich and Steve Bannatyne, who helped bring this discussion to you tonight and make it all happen. I also want to remind you that if you haven't seen the film yet and you are watching, it is still available at the Free Press website. Just type in freak.com/runner. It is a $12 rental, and you will be able to watch the film as many times as you want over a 3-day period. So that's your URL right there. We are also, let's see, hold on just a second here. I'm going to get ready to introduce our panelists. I will say that Free Press sports columnist Shawn Windsor is scheduled to be our moderator tonight. Shawn got pulled in to some breaking news, and he may be showing up a touch late, so I'm going to get things rolling. Hopefully Shawn will be here in just a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I've seen the film. I'm super excited to talk about it as well. So let's bring in our guests. First, I'm going to bring your attention to the director, Bill Gallagher. Bill, welcome.
Thanks, Steve.
Bill is in Madrid, Spain, where he lives now. So it's the middle of the night. So we especially want to provide a big thank you to him. Bill has done a fair amount of work in the documentary and news world, but this is his first feature-length film. And so that is one of the things I definitely want to hear a little bit out from him. And now I guess we could probably call him the guest of honor, the subject of Runner. Let's bring Guor in. Hello, Guor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yes.
We're really excited to talk to you guys. I will say I wish Shawn was here because Shawn, besides being a good friend of mine, he's an awesome journalist, very perceptive person. He often writes about not just sports, but I think he's really good at bringing out the human side of sports. So he'll have some questions prepped, I'm sure, as soon as he gets off that deadline there. But I'll start out with a couple. First of all, I'm going to go, I'll throw this to both of you guys. Can you tell us a little bit, and this is often the obvious film festival question, how did it transpire that you ended up working together? And, Guor, how did you come to trust Bill's ability to tell your story? So I guess first to Bill, when did you become aware of this story, and when did you decide you wanted to tell it? And Guor, how did you feel about being approached about that?
Sure. So it was a few weeks before the 2012 Olympics. I had read a story in the news that Guor had qualified for the Olympics, but he was offered a spot for the country of Sudan, but he said no, thank you. And I had read about his story and thought this is one of the most incredible hero journeys I've ever heard. Coming from the most incredible backstory, multiple escapes from attempts on his life, to being a world-class marathoner. And despite all that, despite working hard to qualify for the Olympics, he said, no, thank you. I'm not going to run for Sudan, the country he ran from, the country who he was a refugee from, the country that killed 28 members of his family and 8 of his 9 brothers and sisters. So I said, this man must have some real strong moral foundation. So within a few minutes or a few hours, I was talking to him over the phone, and he was just an incredibly warm and charming person instantly, and just like he was on screen. And I said, I have to tell this story. It was the most incredible story I'd ever heard. I thought it was an interesting opportunity to tell a little bit about South Sudan, which I was interested in, but didn't know much about. I thought it was an interesting opportunity to tell a story of a person who didn't win the gold medal. You often hear about the guy or the woman who was the champion, but this was not Guor's story. It was a different story. And I thought it was also important for folks in America to sit with a refugee for an hour and a half and just get a refugee story. And yeah, that's where it all started. We talked with Guor. We made plans to meet up at the 2012 Olympics. He was finally offered to run under the Olympic flag under special circumstances, and I sent him a camera in advance to film his life a few days before he got to the Olympics, and we met just a few days before race day. So that's how it started on my side. I don't know, Guor, if you wanted to tell your side of the story, how it felt with this crazy guy showing up with a camera.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, it was. Yes, like Bill said, it's at the time I had no clue about documentary or film or something, how they make and all that. We just go and watch it on Netflix and all of that. And say, this is very interesting. But we don't, as a normal average person, don't even know how all of this comes about. So what happened is that Bill reached out to me, and I was kind of like, what? Documentary? It's another guy tried to follow me with camera, but because at the time there was so many social media and all of that. So I kind of ignored a little bit, but then I talked to him on the phone. He was very genuine, and he was listening to me, willing to listen, even though I did not meet him at that time. But the way I was talking to him and how he was explaining what he wants from this story, it just felt that Bill right away pretty much empathized with my situation out front. There were a couple of journalists and documentaries people approach me, but the way Bill approached me, it was a little bit different. He did not come as hard, that kind of person. Hey, it's great, so let's do it. Let's do it. He first introduced himself, and we talked on the phone. And he said, "Hey, I just thought maybe this would be a great thing for you to show the world and for the refugees. It's an amazing story, and I would be willing to help you, and we can work on it if you allow me to." You see, right there, it showed that this person, he's not actually wanted to come and take this from you and become has a fame for him or her. So that was the thing. And then when I went to London and we met, we just pretty much connect right away. And at the time, Brad Poor was my manager. He was a lawyer at the time, and then he became my manager later on. He was the person in between made the connection and tried to explain to me what is the documentary and all of that. So Bill sent me a small camera before I went to London, and I carried that with me. And I hate to be on a camera. And some of the time I would just forget it in that room and walk away. And Brad would say, "No, you're supposed to do this." And say, "For what?" So that was all that. But yeah, Bill he had a unique way of approaching a person, and the way I saw him, he felt like this become his own story, and he was very passionate about it. And that's how pretty much from there, everything was, like they say, was a history, and we just went on 7.5 years later. Yes.
It's amazing that amount of time, but I would say the connection, that you guys obviously share really does come through on the screen. I think, just the comfort that Guor shows throughout the film, and just, it's such a warm and charismatic portrait. So the good thing that I can tell our viewers is that Shawn has showed up, which means you're not going to have to look at me anymore, and you'll probably have some more intelligent questions coming your way. So what I'm going to do is bring in Free Press sports columnist Shawn Windsor to our stream. And after I introduce him, I'm going to step aside and let the person who's a professional questioner take over. So Guor and Bill, thanks so much for taking on my one question and being here. I'll see you again at the end, and let's see Shawn Windsor. Shawn is a friend of mine and a great sports columnist and feature writer at the Free Press. I've known him a very long time. As I said previously, I think one of the reasons we asked Shawn to do this is, not only is he a great writer with a great understanding of sports, but he understands that human stories almost always underlie the most important sports stories. So that's why I think he's a great person to take over. So I'll say goodbye to everybody and enjoy the rest of our discussion tonight.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties. And by the way, that build up is ridiculous. Steve was doing a great job. Before Bill, we talk more about the movie and the structure and some of the decisions that went into the way you put it together. I wanted to ask you, Guor. I guess there's several things that stick out to me in the documentary, not least of which is when you met your mother for the first time and her reaction, just that whole scene. But and I don't want to diminish that, but I guess what the first thing that comes to my mind, Guor, is what did it feel like when you started running for competition after you had run under the circumstances in your home country? Do you remember what was going through your mind? Do you remember what that felt like that first time on the track?
I thought people were a little bit crazy doing this thing as a sport. That's how I thought in the beginning, especially when my gym teacher, Peter Mike, persuaded me to start running. And I was telling him, "Are you serious? This is not me. I cannot do it." Because back home, we know when we run, we pretty much in my whole life until I came to US is about if you're running, that means you're running for something. Even in the village where I came from, if you see someone running, you don't ask question what is wrong. You start running because you know there is something coming from there, and that's the reason. Interestingly, before I went ahead, when I went back in 2013, and I start to run in the area, people will start running, and I said, no, I'm doing it for a sport, and that is something. It's kind of funny, but it's sad at the same time. That's how people are being traumatized that way. So when I first started running, when he taught me into running, I was just doing it, but I was asking myself, what this is going to lead me into. This is something these people, they maybe they don't understand. They're having fun, but I'm not having fun. It's not a something. But again, later on, right away, within a couple of months into running in high school, I started making friends in high school, and I started connecting with the athletes, and I become in this kind of circle family of caring on one another. So running now become a way of reaching out to people and expose to my own small world that I was in, I was locked in. So running pretty much it came way opening my door, and then in my junior year, I won the national, and that just gave me a different perspective. And along the way, right when I start running, people would look at me and share me on and all of that, and I was kind of, wow, this may be a something, and I might need to take it seriously. So right after I won a national, I took it quite a bit serious, and also too, the community helped me a lot. People were advising me, including my coach, my track coach, Rusty Coffin. He was advising me a lot, telling me how important this thing is and what it's going to do to me. In this case, his advice was, this is your ticket to success. You are very talented, and we know that. And you have shown it. So this can give you a scholarship to go to university, and you can get an education. And if you get education, you will change your life, and you will change your family's life. So after, I was not convinced until I won the national in indoor in high school. And then I got a lot of letters from universities recruiting me. And that's when this thing became a reality. So that is pretty much how it started. So the transition was kind of a little funny, but at the end of the day, it opens a lot opportunity for me.
So, Guor, when you were young, you were running to survive, and then when you're a teenager, you're also sort of running to survive in a way, right? To get to the university. But I'm curious, did you get to a place where, not the meets where there would be fans and so forth, but when you were, let's say, running in practice or running to build your stamina and to build that up, did you find some kind of place there, some kind of peace? I'm curious what that was like, because running is obviously such a solitary pursuit. I'm talking more about cross country than the track and field part of it. But did you find something in that as you were, 16, 17, 18, when you would go out and run, it was just you and your head? I'm curious what that was like.
Absolutely. I did find a lot of comfort. I did find a way of releasing stress and tension and all of that, because when I'm in school, I'm doing all of this, sometimes I get dragged back into that small world. And when I used to go back to my uncle and sit down there, everything comes back and it engulfs me into that small corner. And all of that become a build of stress. But when I go to school and run with a guy, or when I'm going for my run by myself, all of these things goes away. And the only thing I'm focusing now is running. And even when they come into my mind, they become like a purpose of why I'm running. So when I become my success launch up, I use all of this distraction has a motivation, has a purpose, and I keep telling myself, if I can do this, then I imagine myself being in college, first time ever in the family go to high school, first time ever to get the opportunity to go to college. That would be amazing. So even though all of these are very traumatized and very distracting, I have to get through it. I have to get through it and be a better person for my family, myself, and hopefully the community around me. So yes, they become a motivation a lot. After now, all of that negative impact, I turn it to be a positive impact, has a driving force, which I get up every morning, put my shoes on, and keep running.
And for Bill, for you, when you started thinking about this story, what did you want to capture when you're thinking about themes and the narrative? Obviously, as Guor's talking about running there as survival, as an escape, as obviously running is tolerating pain. I mean, anybody that's run under even just 100 yards understands
Right.
that. Just the beating back the lactic acid that's building up in your muscles and how painful that can be. So what are you thinking early on as you're thinking about this story and what you want to kind of capture?
Yeah, I thought the qualifying for the Olympics would be a great narrative arc. And, will he, won't he qualify for the Olympics in 2012 and then eventually 2016? And, a lot of themes emerged. The ability to tell South Sudan's story, the ability to tell a refugee story, but also this ability to sort of, Guor is a prime example of this choice that we all have in life, right? He could have easily shut himself off with all the pain and trauma that he had, and just given up. And he chose to use all that pain and trauma to fuel him for something positive. And that's the theme that slowly emerged over the first few years that I really connected with. And it becomes just sort of a driving, it's a driving force for Guor, of course, but also a major theme in the film.
I'm curious, as a filmmaker, did you think about, and I don't want to relate your stories, obviously they're very, very different, but the idea of taking 5, 6, 7 years to make a documentary is the parallels to running a marathon
that's interesting.
Are there, right? I mean, did you think about that much, and the endurance, the mental endurance
really
that takes to stay through that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I didn't think of that specifically because at first, when we conceived of this idea, we thought it was going to be a short film. We're going to go up to the 2012 Olympics. We're going to go home to see his mom and dad for the first time in 20 years and see Guor reunite with his mom and dad. And we thought it was going to be a real beautiful 20-minute film. But yeah, at the end, it ended up being 7 years of filming or 7 years of filmmaking, and now we're on year 8. But the parallel, I think, that I connected with Guor, and I think a lot of people connected with, is that his pursuit of his dream, right? His dream was bigger than him. He did it for his country. He did it for his family. But he had a dream, and we're all on this sort of pursuit, and it's almost parallel to a marathon, to your point, Shawn. So, making this film, or the pursuit of filmmaking, is like a marathon. You sometimes fall. You sometimes go off course. There's a lot of things that don't go your way. And that's something I really connected with Guor in his pursuit. So yeah, interesting question. But yeah, I thought of that.
Guor, I want to ask you something here in a second about when you were young, but Bill, before I do this, the decision to use the animated sequences, I'm just curious why.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very, very striking. Obviously, you don't have the footage. And there are different ways you can do it. You can have people retell it, but why that decision? And were you pleased with that?
Yeah, so I really thought that for this film to work, it wasn't enough to tell Guor's backstory, have even himself tell the backstory. We had to see it. We had to see Guor's face when he was an 8-year-old boy. We needed to see what it looks like when an 8-year-old leaves his mom and dad. I really thought that's what we needed for this film to work. But so we were on a sort of a course for a year and a half trying to find the right people to animate. And I think they really sort of nailed it. There was this real interesting balance between sort of the gritty landscape of South Sudan and Guor's sort of sweet 8-year-old face. And I thought it really worked. I thought, I thought it just worked. And the Visitor Studio did it. and they did a fantastic job. And I think when people in the movie theater, when they leave the movie theater, one of the first things they say to me is how striking the animation was. And it's just weird and interesting how humans need to sort of see it, and they did, and I think it worked.
So I guess that for you, Guor, then what was that like, seeing that footage? The recreation of obviously just a harrowing time in your life.
It was very interesting, and I was amazed how the film crew were able to take the story that I was describing to them and turn it into something real image. It was amazing. So even though it doesn't look like it was me, but it's actually fit perfectly with my character as a young boy, and be able to do those kind of skip events. Yeah, I was very surprised, and I applaud them a lot and said that is great. And hopefully people are going to like it.
Did it take you back to
It
that
did.
at all? Was it traumatic at all watching in a way?
It was difficult. Even now, it's hard for me to watch it. I saw the film 3 times, and actually 2.5. Some of them I could not resist, and I just say this is every time I see it, that part, it takes me back. It makes the story fresh in my mind, and even when I talk about it, it's doing a couple of Q&A. The first couple of Q&A was very difficult. Every time I talk about it at night, I would be in a nightmare. Because I just feel like it dragged me back to the same exactly, and everything just came. I can just see it. I would be seeing the guy. Like 2 days ago, I was doing Q&A, and I'd see the same kind of people, and they were chasing me down the river, and I had to slide in the mud and try to hide and doing all of the others. And my wife has to grab me at night and said, "What is going on?" I said, "No, it's okay. It's okay. I just have a bad night." And then yesterday during the day, I told her this is what happened. So when you look at it like that, it's seeing that kind of image, it's become very, very real. Like I feel like I was back in the same situation.
I certainly don't want to contribute to the post, the PTSD here, but do you look back at all? Especially when you look at that footage, there are a few things I was thinking about. One, just before you left by yourself, you hiding in a forest for 3 weeks, I think, and then you leave and you get to a bigger community and you know no one, and I'm trying to remember, you're 8, 9 at that point.
Yes,
I think the idea for so many people to be that age and to go to a town and not know a soul, and then start selling mangoes and nuts, I think, as you talked about. Do you think back and think about how you got through that? Was there anybody at all, I mean, before you got to your aunt and uncle, that helped you sort of show you how to make a little money, or just how to even sleep at night and eat and that sort of thing? Just the basic day-to-day way necessities of staying alive?
that's a great question. Yes, there were people. There was actually it was a group of orphanage kids who don't have parents. I would consider myself was not the youngest. There was a couple of them that as young as 5 and 4 years old, around pretty much in the town that don't have their parents around. So I was with those when I first arrived from the village. I entered into those orphanage with the orphanage group, and I saw what they were doing. Some kids were from my area, so back in the day, I didn't know other language besides my mother tongue. So communication was difficult. So when I arrived into the town, these kids from my area who speak the same language were the one dragged me along and showed me how to survive around the town. And a way out there is to go and collect mangoes, collect nuts, and come and sell them into the market. And whatever you get there, you go back and buy a small food and you can share it with those who don't have anything. So that is pretty much those is the kind of group of young kids who helped me along the way.
So there's one point in the movie where it's kind of around that time where you meet another kid and you agree to meet the next day so then you can make a run for it. And so many folks, I think about myself in that situation, other people wouldn't have the whatever that quality is to try to do that. Maybe you would if it's just a survival instinct on some level, but where did that come from? That willingness, that desire at such a young age to plan, come back the next day, and then go like that. What part of that? Where's that come from?
I would say it came from the life I developed back home in the village. For those 8-9 years in that we're living, every time we ran away, and the only way of surviving is that instinct of fear and plan on something and learn how to escape. So I developed that once when I start walking and parents are running and we're all running. They always have plan of escape. If something happened, what if this happened? Where can we run to? And we were running constant, pretty much throughout. My parents ran through that, and I came to being, and I ran through that. So that kind of hutch life taught me a lesson of survival, a skill of survival. So when I went there and we met, we talked to the kid and told him, look, it's better for us to run than to die in the hand of these people, because they were going to go to the Western Sudan and they were going to take us. And majority of the orphan kids these people took never came back. Some of them, you find them later on, they're blind. They're missing limbs, they're missing eyes, and missing some of the part of their body. And because they go and torture these kids and they slave them or sell them to another slave owner. So that was the ideas. And I told them it's better for us to be eaten by a lion or by hyenas or by a cannibal, because at the time there was a lot of cannibal eating another human. So there was all of them everywhere. There was fear. So for us, that all I can say was a God's plan. God gave me that ability to plan that way, and He was a guardian for both of us to be able to make it. Especially, we didn't know a clock. I didn't know what the time was at the time. Never wear a clock, but our clock was the sun. That was our clock. Our guardian was God's guardian throughout all my two skip, my journey from when I left my home up to this point. I put God as was my guardian. He had a purpose of me pulling me out of some situation like that. So that's a decision we made. It just came. That is the only way out, us to escape. That was the reason why we did that.
And Bill, obviously, you wanted to capture that strength. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
But skipping forward just a little bit, you said a little bit ago, you were talking about the footage, not the footage, but wanting to be there for the reunion. I don't even like to use that word; it doesn't do it justice. But when Guor gets to meet his parents, how did you? Can you talk through a little bit how you wanted to film that and capture that? Because it's kind of astonishing footage, and the fact that you made the decision to sit back and let the camera watch Guor's mom for a minute, and as she tried to gather herself and just let that unfold. Can you talk us through or take us through that sequence a little bit?
Yeah, it was completely out of my hands. I actually wasn't there, believe it or not. I had plans, I had tickets, I had a crew, I had everything, and the South Sudanese government would not let me in the country. So I was sort of devastated. But we did have a South Sudanese crew there, and there was a camera person who spoke Dinka and did a beautiful, beautiful job. And despite me being heartbroken, I realized that it actually was the best thing that could have happened, probably, because there wasn't me standing there directing. There wasn't a sound person with a boom. There wasn't, there was one guy that was South Sudanese with a camera who spoke the local language, and it was beautiful. It worked. He didn't intrude. He let things unfold and didn't interrupt. And it's the most heartbreaking footage I've ever seen. I mean, just editing it for, a month and a half, I was just really emotional editing it myself. and thinking about my own mother, and what if I hadn't seen my mom and dad for 20 years. And then over the course of the edit, I had a child, my first child, and I was thinking, what if I didn't see my daughter for 20 years? And it was just too much to bear. And I just think it's, that footage is just so universal, because everybody can sort of gets it right away. They think about a family member that they can't imagine being apart from, and their mom or dad especially. So, but yeah, to your question, I think the camera person, Jacob is his name. He did an amazing job and just sat back, let it unfold, and it was heartbreaking.
And then the Guor for you, I think there was you maybe made a comment in the film that you weren't sure if your family was going to recognize you, which is, that in and of itself is just kind of a staggering comment. But just what was that experience like for you? That first time you saw your mom, I got to believe your mom probably didn't think she'd see you again for some of those, right? So
no, none of them did. My dad, my mom, they were, according to what they were telling me that day, they thought maybe people were lying to them, that I am still alive out there. Even though I talked to them a couple of times, but they thought maybe it's not me. So having that kind of image as a young boy, and then coming had this big old man here, it was tough. It was confusing for them. That's why my mom was not able to recognize me. Until someone was behind me, shout out at her and said, "That is Guor is walking toward you." And that's when she pretty much lost control. I am myself, my mom image was fuzzy in my mind. Kind of saw the way she's kind of walking, I see that, but it was different. So it was tough. It was a tough experience, and but I feel blessed that I found them and they saw me. That's what my dad said afterward. Both of them, my mom and my dad, said, "Okay, now even if we die right now, it's okay. We are going to be happy because we have seen you." And that's the thing. That's the 20 years of waiting and wondering where their child is. That's tough. It was very emotional. Yeah.
I can't imagine. I think it's fascinating, interesting rather, that you recognize your mom and her walk in some way, that the things, because you said your memory of her maybe her countenance is fuzzy, but it's the gait sometimes, or the manners that can stick with us. It's and the way you said it was tough, obviously, but it's also beautiful, especially for those who are watching. But on some level, I imagine it was beautiful for you too, especially once you kind of get over that initial. Because I bet you were nervous, right? And in some way, and anxious, and maybe afraid.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know, and you don't, right? How's your mother going to respond to you? I mean, I can't.
I thought my mom going to pass. That's the thing. My biggest fear was my mom will get a heart attack when she sees me, and that's exactly what happened. And that's I froze. I thought that what I was thinking, that is exactly what is taking place. I froze completely. And then when I grabbed her and I said, "Okay, she's still breathing." In that kind of moment, it was just tough, because the way I was coming, we told them we were coming, but because of the schedule, we could not give a specific time on when we're going to come. So it was kind of surprise to them to just show up they like that. I was very, very worried. But at the end, it turns out well. They hold off. Okay, they hold everything together. And my dad was made things real interesting too, of him coming and jumping around and do all of that. It made me really happy. But it's like I said, I was blessed, and that day it was a great moment for the entire family.
Well, I have one more question, and it's a question maybe both of you could answer here. Just thinking about this film right now and what's going on in the States. Obviously, the subject's part of the early part of the documentary. You deal with colonization. Slavery is obviously a part of it. these are two things that play a huge part of the story of America. And so for your film to come out right now with everything that's going on here and the conversation in this country, the sort of the reckoning that's I hope that's going on here at this moment. I'm just curious for both of you how you think this film fits in, and maybe just some comments on what's going on right now in our country.
Guor, you want to take that first?
You can go first.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend an hour or two talking about that. I mean, I think what I will say is that whether it's slavery or war, I mean, when you see a reunion with a son and a mother and her father for the first time in 20 years, like you do with Guor, I think that's all you need to know about war. That's all you need to know about deep trauma or slavery. And I think in this country, we just need to have a reckoning and just apologize, frankly, for all the horrible stuff we've done as a country. And we cannot heal until we apologize and we confront who we are. And that was, I guess, part of the film. We tried to confront in little ways the history in little bits of South Sudan and Guor's history, and we tried not to sugarcoat it anyway. And with that, we hope that there's true healing in the community. Hopefully there's healing for Guor. You can comment on that, Guor. But just like that, I think we need to do that as a country. You know, we're easy. It's easy to talk about how we're the best at things, but it's not so easy for us to apologize and talk about how our founding principles, we're not living up to our founding principles. So.
And Guor?
That's a great question, Steve. It's one of the toughest question to because it's very, very difficult to say there's no right or wrong for this. It's just based on how we can realize things. But the way I see this situation, the situation the United States is facing, and the situation the world is facing, is that I think as a human, we came very far. And the history shows us every single nation has a lot of struggle. The nation were built based on the struggle, and discrimination has been a part of the human history for a very, very long time. And I just think that we are at a very unique time in human history to acknowledge that we are one human. We bleed the same blood, and everything happened in the past. We did a lot of mistakes, but these mistakes, we can correct them, and we can acknowledge that we have done the mistakes, and we cannot say, I apologize what I have done to you, or what you have done to me is wrong. But yes, they are wrong, but the water is already spilled on the ground. We cannot take that water back in the bucket, but we can make sure that the water again cannot spill again. And to do that is for us to acknowledge our coexistence, our differences, and use that differences as our strength, as our power to overcome all of these challenges. It's a tough time. Apology for ourselves or feeling guilty for ourselves is not going to solve us this solution. And I do think that with what is going on around the world and with what the United States is facing, it's going to require all of us as a collective group, as a human being, as a first thing, to come together. And whether you're white, you're black, or whatever, forget that. We're all together, and let's work together, and let's fix this. That is the only way we're going to go forward. Otherwise, the next generation and the generation after that is going to face the same issue. And that's going to be our guilt and our fail on this earth for us to not take care of that. And that's how I look at it. It's for us to come together and acknowledge we did a mistake among ourselves. And every nation created by human being, there is a problem. There is a bad people in every single society. but it's up to a society to pinpoint those problems and fix it. Otherwise, the small minority bad group become a majority bad group, and the majority good group become a small minority good group. So it's better for us to acknowledge them and tackle them right away and fix them, so that bad group become a good group, and the world can be in the peace. The way the refugees are going right now, the influx is going to continue. No matter where we are in a corner of our world, we think we are in a peace. But if there is a chaos going on the other part of the world, it's going to reach us wherever we live in. So it's better for us to reach out there and unite and try what is bothering us, tackle that, and eliminate it.
Those are beautiful and wise words, Guor. Thank you for letting me be a part of this and ask some questions. I think the film it's hard to watch at times. It's inspiring. There are a lot of messages, a lot of lessons in there that I think are really, really relevant. I mean, it'd be relevant any time, but I think it's hitting us at a really good moment, Bill and Guor. And I thank you for your perseverance, both of you, for making the film, for what you've done, Guor. And I think I think Steve is going to check back in here and take us out. But in any case, what an honor it's been. I encourage anybody who hasn't seen it to get out and watch the film, and thank you.
Thanks, Shawn.
Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, Shawn, thanks so much for moderating. Really appreciate that. To anyone who came in late, Shawn Windsor is a great feature writer and sports columnist at the Detroit Free Press. I just want to accentuate what he said. I thought how Guor rounded things out there. It was a very profound message, something we probably all could use to pay a little bit of attention to. So, Guor, thank you for allowing Bill to make this film. Thank you for sharing a little more insight with us, both about what it was like to be a subject of a movie like this and what we might take from it. And Bill, of course, thanks for making the film. Like Shawn says, anyone who knows anything about the documentary industry, a lot of perseverance tends to be involved. So I'm glad you got to the finish line, so to speak, and that it's all available. The film is out there and available in the marketplace. So I will remind everybody that you can still watch a Runner at freep.com/runner. It's a $12 rental. You can watch it for as much as you like, over 72 hours. If you want to pass this conversation along, it will be archived both on the Detroit Free Press Facebook feed and on the Free Film Festival YouTube page. So anybody who came in late and would like to see what this was all about or would like to share it with a friend, I'll suggest that you share the chat along and offer a recommendation for this great film. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us tonight. I will say just a couple more things. If you're not familiar with Free Film Festival, perhaps you came in late. It is the documentary festival that is produced by the newsroom of the Detroit Free Press. We're in our 7th year. During these pandemic times, we are pretty regularly doing virtual conversations or virtual screenings. I'm going to throw in a small commercial that we have another one coming up in just a couple of days on Wednesday. July 1st is a one-day only screening. There is information up on the Free Press social media channels, and it'll also be up on freep.com. Is a documentary about the legendary Detroit musician Suzi Quatro. It is called Suzy Q. It was going to have its Michigan premiere at the physical Free Film Festival in April. That, of course, didn't happen. So now we are a presenting partner on its national virtual premiere on Wednesday. So check out our social media for that. And I hope you continue paying attention to Free Film Festival and spreading the word about Runner. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you being here tonight, and stay safe out there.